Hey guys, so welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, today I'm back with a brand new book video, and this is what I read in June and July, because I just realised today that I never filmed one from what I read in June, because I was going to film July but I didn't do June, so here we are. I also have a cup of tea here, so I'm feeling very like old school Carrie Hope Fletcher vibes, but you know. So yes, I'm getting ready for work. This is why my hair is like this. You know, this lighting, man, every time I film, it's not it. So because there's a lot of books, we're just gonna jump straight into it. So let me have a sip of my tea and we'll go straight in. Okay, so I read 6 books in June, so I'm gonna go straight into them. So the first one, wrong one, hold on. So now I've got the right book. I picked up the wrong one. So the first book I read in June was Good Girl Bad Blood. So this is the second book in a, well, it's not a duo because the third one's about to come out, but in a series. So yes, so this book carries on from the first one, kind of, and basically she has like this podcast from, because she solved a crime in the first book and now she's doing a podcast on the second one, and then another crime happens and she basically tries to like solve it because the police aren't helping, as well as putting it on her podcast so other people can help and give her information if she needs it, and then of course she solves it in the end, you know. So that's that. I forgot to say this is by Holly Jackson. So the next book I have, I showed in one of my book hauls, I think, might be wrong. So this is Crave by Tracy Wolff. I really loved this book. I don't know what it was about it, but I really loved it. Maybe because of like the supernatural and everything. So this is about a girl called Grace, and basically she's like a mortal, she's a mortal, and she goes to a school that's full of like the supernatural, so like witches, werewolves, dragons, vampires, everything. So but she doesn't know who they are because her parents died and she has to go live with her uncle at this school. And basically like, people are trying to kill her, like they don't want her there. She falls in love, it's a whole big thing, and then you find out something about her at the end, which I'm not gonna say because it will spoil the whole thing, and if I had known I would have been very disappointed, but I would recommend this book. So the next book I read was Crush by Tracy Wolff. So this is the second one in the series. There is 5 books in total of this series. I've only read 2 because the third one is now in paperback and the 4th and 5th one aren't out yet, and I want them in paperback because I brought the first 2 in paperback. If I'd known, I would have brought them in hardback, but I didn't, so here we are. And I can't have non-matching series, so here we are. Right, so this book carries on from the first one, as most series do, but this, she basically like comes back to school. Like if you've read it, you know I'm not going to go into too much just in case like I don't want to spoil anything, which basically comes back and she's changed like dramatically inside, but no one can figure out what it is about her, and they figure it out and then she falls in love again, and it's basically just like, what the hell. And I think she should end up with someone else, but I shouldn't. So then I'm kind of growing on this other guy, so it's kind of okay. Like I'm sure I'll love him eventually when I read the next ones. So at the end, basically something happens and they kind of like bury her and then whatever. It's a bit confusing, and then the end line is like a shock. Well, I said the end line because then you've got 2 chapters in the other guy's point of view, but the ending is really shocked that I knew was coming when I got towards the end of the book. Like the last couple of chapters I knew what was happening, but now if I read it again I probably would have noticed a lot sooner what was actually happening. The last line was definitely a shock to me. So the next one I read was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So I really loved this book. I was skeptical buying it and reading it at first because it's on TikTok and it's hyped up so much, and I didn't know if I would like to read something like that because I didn't want to read it and then it'd be terrible. But that being said, I actually really loved this. So this is about basically a system or something that calls you and says, like, just after midnight, and says you're gonna die today, and you don't know when you're gonna die or how or whatever. So there's these two guys, and I think they're under 18. They're like 17. I think one's 17 and one's 18. I can't remember. This was June. So basically they go on this like website sort of thing that connects people, whether you're gonna die or whether you're not. So these two guys find each other, and they basically spend the day doing things together. They almost die a couple times, you know, why wouldn't they? They basically kind of like fall in love with each other without like kind of, I think, meaning to. I'm not really sure if they meant to or not, but it's not a spoiler because they do both die in the end, so I can say that. But it does end nicely. Well, I'd say kind of nicely. Like, I like the ending of this book, so I definitely recommend this. So next book I have is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So I necessarily wasn't going to read this book ever because I saw it on Carrie Hope Fletcher. I think she put it on her Instagram, and I wasn't really going to read it because it doesn't seem like my sort of book, you know. But I saw it on the buy one get one half price in Waterstones, and I kind of just like had to see what the fuss was about. I need to leave work. So basically this book is about when you die. Well, these books are about dying, man. You go to this place that's like between death, and this case, for one person's case, is a library. Apparently it differs in the story. It says it differs from person to person. So she goes to this library and she basically has a chance to undo regrets, I think it is. So she can go into different lives that are kind of running at the same time as her life, and she basically gets to experience other stuff and try and, I think, sort it out. So try and find the best way to live. I can't remember how it ends, but she did kill herself at the beginning, and that's how she got into the Midnight Library. And if she had decided she really wanted to die, then they would have sent her to death, not this kind of like waiting room sort of thing. Yeah, so I would recommend that. And the last book I read in June was The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Now, I love her style of writing. I've read one book by her already. I can't remember what it was called. Maybe it was this. I don't know. Either way, this book. So basically, I shown this in one of my hauls, my book hauls, and I didn't know what it was about. But now I can tell you. So this book is basically about this guy has a flat and he works nights, so he's not in the house or the flat. So he rents it out so someone can sleep in his bed and use his flat when he's not there. So then she moves in and she never meets him. She meets his girlfriend who doesn't even live there. So she moves in, and from like, she has to be out of the house from like 9 or 8 until the evening, and then she gets it from like 5 or 6 until the morning, and she has to leave again. And then on the weekends it's hers because he goes and stays at his girlfriend's, and they don't meet for a very long time. They eventually get together, just no surprise, because if you're sharing a flat you're gonna end up getting together. And it's actually a really cute like little love story, and that's not normally what I read. You have to have some sort of like mystery or supernatural feel to it, but this was still really good for me to read. I really loved it. And they took a trip to Brighton, which is where I live, so I love that. I love reading stories where they go somewhere that I know. So yes, so that's all the books I read in June. So I will now go on to the books I just read this month, because it's the 2nd of August. You'll be seeing this on like the 3rd or 4th of August. I can't remember what day the Wednesday is. I'm gonna grab them and I'll show you. Okay, so once again in July I read 6 books. There is only 5 here, I know, but I borrowed one of my dad's books and it's down on his bookshelf, and I'm not walking down there to get it because I don't have time, because I need to get ready for work. So Yes, so the first book I read in July was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens. So this was a book that I didn't feel like I would ever read or really enjoy. It was kind of like, it wasn't really talked about anywhere, and then I saw it in this book group I'm on Facebook, and then I saw it in Waterstones, and I kind of just like couldn't stop myself. So I had to buy it. So yeah. So this book is set in like the 1960s, 1969 and onwards. So it's basically about this girl. We call her the Marsh Girl because she lives in the marsh. Not in the marsh, that little shed on the marsh. And she basically lives with her mum, her brother, her dad, and like 4 older siblings, I want to say. It might be 3. And they're all a lot older than her. So her mum randomly gets up and leaves one day, and I think it's because her dad's abusive. So she leaves. She doesn't know. I think the girl's 8 when her mum leaves, or maybe younger. And then after that, her brothers and her siblings like all start to leave and just leave her with her dad. And most of the time she'd be living on her own because he wouldn't be there, and they wouldn't see each other. So she kind of learns how to like basically live on her own, and then suddenly he just disappears too, and she kind of has to act like her dad is there because otherwise she'd be like taken into custody or something. She then meets this guy, and basically like they fall in love with each other, and he takes care of her, but then he leaves to go to college and she can't leave. And then she finds this other guy who basically is like falling around with each other. Like, he doesn't really love her, I wouldn't say, but then that guy ends up dead and the other guy comes back for her, and it's kind of like a twisty story. But then I think she ends up with the original guy. I think she does anyway. I can't remember. I actually really love this book. Like, it was a really beautiful like book. I just loved it, really, to be honest. I love all the nature. Like, she doesn't really go anywhere. Like, it's really all about nature. And yeah, so yes, so I definitely recommend this book if you're looking for like a book about nature with a girl and 2 guys, and one ends up dead and they think it's her, and she gets arrested, and then they find out it wasn't her. Can't remember who it was though, who killed him, but I don't think it was her. So the next book I read, which is really hyped on TikTok, I have 12 minutes, is The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So it took me a really long time to read this book, I will not lie. Don't know what it was, like I just couldn't read it. Like, it was good. I thought it was going to be really like repetitive, and that is not what I like, I'll tell you that. But it was. It's basically this guy. It's from a guy's point of view. I didn't think it would be, but now it makes more sense. I don't know why I just didn't think it would be. Basically, he's the guy. He's trying to find out who's killing this girl, or this woman. And so every time she dies though, he wakes up in a new body, but if he doesn't sleep past midnight in that body, he can go back to it and try and figure out who's killing her. But there's a guy behind the scenes that's playing with the system and kind of making it so he can figure it out, and there's like kind of a big twist in the end when they figure it all out. And then, I mean, he falls in love with someone that I don't really understand that bit. But yeah, so he wakes up in all these other people's like bodies trying to figure out who killed her. And I could say something that will spoil it, but I'm not gonna, because if you want to read this book, I would recommend it. It did take me a long time to get through it, but I think that's probably because I started work, and I don't have a lot of time to read anymore. I mean, I still manage 6 books a month, but I could read more if I wasn't at work, so I definitely recommend this. Next book I read, I don't actually have, like, it's downstairs, so with my dad. So it's I think it's How to Stop Time by Matt Haig, so one of the authors I read last month. This book came out ages ago, but I recognised it on my dad's bookshelf because I really like Matt Haig's writing. So this book is about a old man. He's not really old, well, he's like 400 years old, basically, and he has this condition that stops him aging. Well, not stops, it kind of like ages him a lot slower than we all age. So he could be, I think he was like looked really young when he was 18, and now he looks like, I think he was like looked 60 or something, and he's 400, like and it basically shows from him when he was younger, like it flips between them, and how his mum dies, and how like he met like Shakespeare or whatever. So basically it just shows all that and what he dealt with this condition. And then he's now like a history teacher and falls in love with this girl, and it's all like a bit confusing, but in the end it was like a really, really beautiful book, and I really, really did love it. That's what I'm going to say on that, because there's not much else to say. So the next book I read is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I hate these stickers. Like, it's not a sticker, like it's on like in the cover, and it's so annoying. But this book I think I read in like 2 to 3 days. Like, it was a really, really good book. So basically it goes like this girl, old lady she is now, basically meets up with a writer for a book, or not a book, she meets up with a writer from a magazine, but ends up wanting to write a book with this girl. So she goes through and tells the what's her name, magazine reporter, all about her 7 husbands and why she had 7 husbands and the drama behind it all. And it's really, really interesting. Like, I loved it because she was from like the 1980s and upwards, so it was really cool to read about that. And then then this other girl always wonders why this Evelyn Hugo, which is a massive star, decided to choose her to write about it. And the end, I did not see that coming, like, at all. But the ending to this book, so basically she falls in love with a girl or woman, and which was very forbidden at the time, which comes to a shock for loads of people, and I don't really know why, because like in the story, I think maybe because they just didn't expect it. But yeah, this ends on like a cliffhanger, and the magazine reporter ends up hating Evelyn Hugo, and it's just quite funny, to be honest. But yes, I would definitely recommend this, because it was the fastest I've read a book in a while because of work. So the next one I read is very, very popular on TikTok as well. So this is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, this took me a while to finally read this book. When I did, I don't think it took me too long. Also, what's with this half cover thing? Like, whatever. But yes, so this book is about the Prince of Wales and the first son of the US, and basically they meet up at events and they hate each other. Who's texting me? They basically like really hate each other, don't like each other, but they end up falling in love because they break like a cake for a wedding, and they have to like meet up to try and say that like they're really close friends or whatever from the both PR teams, and they end up falling in love, and they try to hide it, and they don't do a very good job, I'm not gonna lie, because they get found out, and they have to try and cover it up, and then because obviously the Prince of Wales can't be like, oh, I'm gay, like, well, I mean they could, but no, not in this story anyway. And basically just kind of like he thinks his mum's not going to get re-elected for president, and it was a really, really interesting read, like learning about like how stuff works in the White House. I mean, it might not be true, like she could have just made this up, like I don't know how it works, but I think that's how it works. But I would really, really recommend this. Like, I thought it was a really good book. First I thought it was going to be really, really overhyped, but it actually wasn't. So I would give this a read if you're looking for something. And the last book I read in July, because I need to get ready, so I'm glad this is almost done. I have 5 minutes, I need to leave. So last book I read was Influence by Sarah Shepherd and Lilia Buckingham. Now, this was a book that I picked up just because I love Sarah's writing, and I love Lilia Buckingham. So I thought I'll just give it a go. And this is about, set around 4 like influencers, which is kind of like big at the like now, like, come on. So basically just writes about everything they like get into in the influencer world, like the drama, the scandals or whatever. Now one of them ends up dead, and then they're all like suspected of it, like it's not like this whole scandal, and then they find out how she ends up dead, and like you think it's one person and it turns out to be another, and it's actually really, really interesting and more interesting than I thought it was gonna be. I don't know why I thought it wasn't gonna be that great, but it was really, really interesting. I think it's meant for like like the younger side of young adults. That made any sense. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you're looking to get an insight of the influencer community. So yes, so that is all the books that I read in June and July, a whole 12 books. I will next time get it out on time because I didn't realise that I hadn't done a July one. June one, maybe because my Wi-Fi went out. I don't know, and maybe I just didn't think about it for whatever reason. So yes, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe down below. On Wednesdays I do book videos, and on Sundays I do makeup videos if you're interested in either of those. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.